Meanwhile, Syria recorded nearly 12,000 aircraft transits in May as regional airlines rerouted from airspace disrupted by the conflict in the West Asia and into skies that most carriers had avoided for more than a decade. Have a look at this report.
Syria recorded nearly 12,000 aircraft transits in May as regional airlines rerouted around airspace disrupted by conflict in the Middle East and back into skies that most carriers had avoided for more than a decade. Overflights in May were about 375% higher than in the same month last year. Syria's airspace was a no-go zone throughout the 14-year civil war that ended with the ousting of President Bashar al-Assad in 2024. The turnaround is potentially lucrative for Syria. It increased the fees it charges airlines earlier this year. Based on a flat fee of $499 per flight introduced by Syria's new government, last month's traffic could have generated as much as $5.9 billion in overflight revenue. The General Authority for Civil Aviation declined to comment on revenue potential and the new fees. Airlines were forced to reassess Syria after US and Israeli airstrikes began the Iran war in February, and the airspace over Iraq and the Gulf that airlines previously relied upon was shut during March. A ceasefire led to the reopening of airspace in April, but according to flight tracking services, the majority of flights to Europe from Dubai and Doha have since crossed central Syria rather than Iraq. Flying over Syria cuts journey times and fuel costs as airlines try to lessen the impact of the surge in international oil prices.
And now, after months of cross-border hostilities, Israel and Lebanon have agreed to implement a US-brokered ceasefire. The deal aims to halt Hezbollah attacks and ease tensions in the regions. Here's more in this report.
Lebanon and Israel said on Wednesday they had agreed to implement a ceasefire, following negotiations in Washington aimed at ending the conflict tied to wider regional tensions involving Iran. Here's U.S. State Department Chief of Staff Daniel Haller.
As a result of U.S.-led negotiations, Israel and Lebanon agreed to the implementation of a ceasefire. The ceasefire is contingent on a complete cessation of Hezbollah fire and the evacuation of all Hezbollah operatives from the South Litani sector.
Under U.S. guidance, both sides also agreed to set up pilot zones, where the Lebanese armed forces would take full control, removing all non-state armed groups. The agreement builds on a previous truce reached in April that was extended in May, though violence had continued. Israeli drone strikes killed at least 6 people in southern Lebanon on Wednesday, according to Lebanese security sources. While Israel said it intercepted what it described as hostile aircraft, likely launched from Hezbollah, a separate U.S.-brokered deal earlier this week had already led to a pause in attacks on Beirut's southern suburbs and cross-border fire. Israel launched its offensive in March after Hezbollah fired across the border in support of Tehran. Iran says any peace deal with the U.S. must also include a ceasefire for Lebanon. Oil prices eased on Thursday morning in Asia, falling by less than 1%, with crude hovering just below $100 a barrel, as the ceasefire raised hopes for a broader deal to end the region's conflict.